almost again inevitably, this is an area where we find ourselves, or learners find themselves challenged. Lots of learners come from languages that have far fewer consonant clusters, or indeed in some cases no consonant clusters in their first language. And this very simple thing for English speakers of having overlapping consonants one after the other, like in the word scrap or stream, where we have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, overlapping them one after the other, that we as English speakers find no problem at all, because we've been hearing it and producing it since we were toddlers. But if you've never done that, and your first language doesn't have consonant clusters, then that, as I say, will be an obstacle. Take, for example, a learner who's a Japanese. Japanese has virtually no consonant clusters. Japanese is a language which more or less consists of a single consonant followed by a single vowel repeating. Okay, so if you think about Japanese place names, that'll, you know, demonstrate that for you. Okay, there are very few instances where more than one consonant occurs. And so what happens with Japanese speakers when they come to having to cope with this is that they'll put in extra sounds and create extra syllables to break up those consonant clusters. And people often think, I wonder why they're saying that. And the reason is because they're not used to consonant clusters. And so a word like this, Japanese speakers, when they start trying to learn English, break up that cluster, and rather than saying scrap, say sakarapu, or this one, stream, satorimu. So you get that kind of Japanese sounding English from that sakarapu and satorimu, and that's because they're making the English pattern try to fit their mother tongue pattern, so adding in these extra vowels. Again, something we'll come back to when we think about pronunciation, teaching in a bit more detail in a future session. Let's go on to word stress. So what we're talking about here, I was saying before, syllables can be strong or syllables can be weak. At the level of the word, we're thinking which syllable stands out to us more than other syllables in a word. This, I've mentioned this before to you, but this is actually quite important in terms of word shape. Whether we get the stress right or wrong often will determine whether or not our intelligibility is good or poor. So I think I mentioned to you, it's possible to see this idea of word shape. If you take a word like apple, for example, it's the first syllable in apple that's stressed, isn't it? And I mentioned that idea of humming words to try to get that idea. So if you hum apple, like that, it's more obvious. So the word shape of apple looks like that. This is the prominent syllable, and this is the weak syllable. Okay? And it's important to get that stress in the right place, because if you put it in the wrong place, it can just often throw out the word altogether. So if for example I put the stress on the second syllable, which of course would be wrong, so this will be weak, that will be strong, okay? That would be pronounced not apple, but apple. Okay? And apple, if you said apple to somebody, okay, they probably wouldn't know what you meant. Okay? If you said, you know, I would like apple, people are probably going to say, well, what do you mean? I'm not sure I've got any. When in fact, you're trying to say that. Now, all I'm doing there is just getting the stress wrong. That's a very, very common error for learners to commit, just to get the stress wrong in a word and not be understood as a result. So that's why it's actually really quite important when you're teaching new words and new vocabulary that you concentrate on this bit as well as other bits. what the word means, how it's spelt, but how it's said. And in particular, where the stress comes, is an important bit of information to give to our learners. The other thing is, it seems initially to learners that English word stress is unpredictable. In fact, in a broad sweep of things, it's not terribly unreliable or unpredictable, but it seems like it at first, because depending on the word and depending on the length of the word, the stress can shift about. And I'll show you some examples of what I mean. I'm going to give you again just a list of words here, and what I'd like you to do is try to work out which you think within each word is the strongest stressed syllable. We'll do the first one together, and then the others you can do in a 2 and a 3. So this one here, random, 2-syllable word. One of those syllables is stressed. Which syllable would you say it is, the first or the second? Random. Yeah, like that, yeah. Random. Okay, so like apple, in fact. Okay, so again, if you want to hum it, to highlight it to yourself a bit more, feel free. So the stress would be, and the convention in dictionaries is to put a little line immediately above the stressed syllable, pointing down like that. Okay, most learners' dictionaries use that convention, and what that means is the first syllable is stressed. Okay, and if it was the second one, you put it here. Okay, you move the line, so immediately before the syllable itself. Have a go. See what you can come up with. So you say the words to one another and try and work out, and again, it's not as straightforward as it might seem, but try and work out where the stress comes in each of those words there. A couple of minutes to do that. Oh, we need to give them the handout. Actually, we've got a handout that goes with this that you can save you a bit of writing time. So.